So that's what I think is interesting. Like, when we can acknowledge that, like, it's not just this very strict hero's journey that goes, like, a lone man goes into the cave and rediscovers himself and is reborn out of the big vagina and then fights with a big phallus and wins. Like, when we can rediscover a narrative that doesn't just have that, like, one specific male masculine journey, then I think that would be real change.
You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the show where we talk to women who work in the entertainment industry and hear their stories. This week, I got to sit down and speak with Tara Miele. She's a writer and director and has done several feature films for Lifetime, among many other things, commercials and lots of other projects. She was so warm and funny and practical and recognizes that it does feel very risky to hire a woman director. Not exactly sure why, but knows that everybody seems to act like that is true. Anyway, here's our conversation. Have a listen. Why don't we start with, what do you do?
I'm a screenwriter and a director. I've directed 4 feature films, 3 of which have sold to Lifetime Network, and I've done a bunch of commercials.
Great. What was your path to get here?
My path. I was a theater brat and went to college and was directing theater at UCSB, and one night I was like super stoned and someone dragged me to some student film screenings, and I remember very vividly sitting in the back of the room and being like, oh, this is my home. This is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to be here. And so the next day I went to the film studies department and I was like, so how do I do one of those films? And they were like, oh, well, you have to be a film major first.
For starters.
And I was like, well, I could do that. So anyway, they were very friendly with me. They didn't have a lot of drama people coming over from, you know, that world into the film world. And it was mostly techie, a lot of techie boys. So yeah, I fought really hard. I took a bunch of classes, and then I got one of those student films by the time I was a senior. And then that short film, which was my first project ever, went to Slam Dance. And I was interning for Jodie Foster, and I was just like firing on all cylinders. My family is not a Hollywood family, very blue-collar Long Island roots. And so I...
Well, how'd you get that first job with Jodie Foster?
So my film production teacher at UCSB had never recommended anybody before for an internship with this. He knew the vice president there, and he got me an interview there. And luckily, she was a theater brat from Thousand Oaks, and we had a lot in common. And I have to say my time at Meglephobe was the president at the time, and Lisa Buono was their VP. And it was literally, it was like 1999, and it was like a bunch of women in no shoes drinking Diet Coke on the Paramount lot. It was like heaven. And I think it definitely got me through the next several years of being an assistant in less favorable circumstances. Yeah.
So what did you do when you were there?
At Egg? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was amazing. So besides just, you know, taking calls and rolling calls and helping people with scheduling and all that stuff, they made sure we read every project that they were working on. They allowed me to sit in on pitch meetings, so I would be the one like taking notes when writers would come in to pitch. We always had lunch together whenever the execs didn't have a lunch, and they would talk to us about projects and brainstorm with us about fixes for things.
I mean, just that is amazing.
I mean, it was amazing. I mean, it was really like remarkable. And not only that, they introduced me to, I would say, 6 different directors, and they would send me on meetings, lunches with different directors, which was like...
Because they knew that's what you wanted to do.
That's what I wanted to do. Although I do think, interestingly, in retrospect, I remember them sitting me down at one point and saying, you should think about producing. And I was like, well, I don't want to be a producer. I'm definitely, like, I'm not type A. I'm not like a very, I mean, you can look at my messy office. Like, I'm not, I'm like, I need a little hand holding. Like, I'm like a big picture person, and the details come differently for me. And I said, no, I'm not a producer. I'm a director for sure. Like, that's definitely it. And they said, women have an easier time producing. And I don't think that it was even a dissuasion. It was like an attempt at a gentle reality check for me. And I was completely oblivious, completely unaware. Like, it just didn't occur to me. Like, I grew up in the 80s. I thought sexism is ancient history. Mm-hmm. This is like the modern world. And
you thought it was over.
Mm-hmm. And even I will say, like, while I was, this gung-ho, like chugging forward and selling stuff and moving through my 20s, I still and experiencing major setbacks. I still didn't have a voice for it until like the past, I would say 3 years, when all of the statistics came out and all the information came out, and I could finally say, oh yeah, that's what's happening to me.
Did it not, you can put your finger on it at the time?
Not in any way that didn't sound like sour grapes, right? So like, I remember specifically, I had a mentor. I worked on this HBO show for a while out of college, and I had a mentor who was a director on that show, Bruce Paltrow, who's Gwyneth Paltrow's dad. And he was great. He was like, he saw a short film I had done, and he was like, this is great. What the fuck are you doing working for this asshole? Like, go write a script. I'll get you the money. Gwyneth loves that comedy shit, whatever. He was like, go do it. So I started writing. He was like, you have to write. So I started writing and started selling studio stuff. And I was probably like 28, and I was sitting in a meeting at a big studio, and they were fighting about my script. The producers and the execs fighting about the script over me, not liking it. And I was trying to like explain.
You're sitting in the room.
Mm-hmm, I'm in the room. And in my heart, I'm like, I have this indie movie I'm attached to that I'm going to direct. It's like $1 million movie that I'm attached to. And we're like doing all these great things with that. And so I'm feeling like, well, off the legitimacy of my $1 million attachment that I've got, I'm definitely going to be like a shoo-in to direct my own movie that I've written. Like, this is how it happens. Like, I'm going to be a big thing. And I just was sitting there, and it was an older female executive, a younger male executive, and then my two producers, who was like an older man and a younger woman. And there was so little heed paid to anything that came out of my mouth. And I thought to myself, like, this was my idea. Like, I'm the one who came up. Like, we sold it. Like, you guys are just deal brokers. You're just broke. Like, and maybe now I understand a little bit better, having like come through the process and having been on the other side of that table. But it just occurred to me in that moment. I was like, oh, they are never going to let me direct. Ever. I was like,
no respect for the creator.
I was a young female writer, and it was like the trifecta of like pointless, like just disregard.
You're lucky they let you in the room.
Right, right. So from that point, so then the strike happened, and then everything fell to pieces. And I remember very specifically, I was pregnant, 4 months pregnant. My writing partner and I had just pitched something to another studio that they loved, and I was like, oh my god, please let us get this job because I need health benefits. And I'm terrified, like we're running out of money. We have we're pregnant. And they passed, they had waited 6 weeks to pass. And then we found out they passed because they just didn't have money. They had like no development money. And we were like,
why are you taking meetings?
Right. Why we waited and waited. And like, I just was like done. And I was like, I just can't imagine breaking another character, throwing another thing at the wall. Like, I'm not directing. I've been here 12 years. Like, I'm pregnant with this daughter who is like, how am I going to tell her that you can follow your dreams? Like, if I've never done it, like, it's all I wanted to do, and I'm here, and I have not made a feature. It's 12 years. Like, what am I doing? It was like 10 years. Like, right, painful. Like, it was so painful. And so I decided that I was like, I am not a failure. This is not my story. There's other ways for me to contribute to the world. If I can't contribute in this space, I will go somewhere else and contribute. I have a lot to give. Like, this is nuts. I'm wasting my value here. So that lasted 4 days, 4 whole days. But I did. I broke up with my writing partner. I left my agent. I quit writing. I went to therapy. I went to a lot of yoga. And then I got an email from a friend who said, hey, read this thing. It's from a producer. She's got a house in Michigan, $100,000, a dog, and a pickup truck, and she wants to make a movie this summer. And I was like, but I'm due this summer.
How's that going to work?
Yeah. And so I read it. I met with her. I called every WGA writer I knew and was like, do you have anything that would fit in House in Michigan? Like, do you have anything? Yeah. And nobody had anything. And it was really small. And so I pitched her this idea that everyone, my agents and everyone, thought was stupid. And I really wanted to do it. And she was like, oh my God, I love that idea. And I was like, let me tweak it so that it's set in Michigan, and I'll send it to you tomorrow or whatever. So I went home and wrote it because I'd never written it. So I wrote the whole thing in 4 hours. I was like, la la la. And then we made that movie. She was like, yeah, I want to shoot in August. I was like, well, I'm due in August, so what about June? Like, we could do June. And she's like, wow, that's soon. And I was like, we can do it. And she's like, is this crazy? And I'm like, it's crazy. Let's do it.
The whole thing is crazy.
The whole thing was crazy. So I shot until I was 34 weeks pregnant or something, right until before you can fly.
Right.
And then I flew home, right? Flew home the day before my last date. And then we had a pickup shoot a week later. And I remember sitting, it was really hot in Hollywood, and we were shooting like on Hollywood Boulevard. I was like, you guys, I can't help load out. I'm so sorry. And they were like, will you please just sit there? And then I had the baby the next day.
Oh my God.
I know. It was crazy. She was early. So that was my first feature. And then
what was that called?
The Lake Effect. Okay. That feature was almost distributed by a company in LA called Mar Vista Entertainment. We did some festivals. It was great. It was fun. And then Mar Vista almost distributed it, but then it fell through last minute. And amazingly, a woman, Sharon Bordas, who I had met, was a writer. She was on the picket line. She was now working as a development exec at Mar Vista. And she was like, hey, we're not going to buy this movie. Not your fault. It's internal. It has nothing to do with you. But you should come work for me. And I was like, that sounds great. So Sharon hired me to do 3 movies back to back over the past 4 years.
Oh, fantastic.
So those are my 4 features. The last one was starred Virginia Madsen. We did this really beautiful one that was like a really dark horror movie look at the world of inspiration, which is online anorexia cults.
I watched that last night.
Oh, you did?
I
did.
My
gosh.
It was very disturbing.
It's very disturbing. But what's interesting is Sharon, after I did the first one, I was like, I'm just going to behave myself. It's the first one. I'm just going to shoot exactly that. I'm just like, I'm a gun for hire. The second one, I was like, we could go crazy, right? And so they brought me this idea, and I was like, this world is really messed up. Like, first of all, Sharon was like, do you want to do an anorexia movie or a Christmas movie? And I was like, Christmas movie. She was like, no, do the anorexia movie. So she told me about the inspiration. I did a little research, and I just went down this rabbit hole. And that night I was like having nightmares about this like girl, Anna, that they actually talk to. They worship this girl, like The Ring, like standing in the corner of my room. So I said, okay, I'll do it. But it can't just be like a huggy mommy-daughter Lifetime movie. Like, that's not what this is. This is possession, the way that people talk about, the way that their children are taken over. So I want to do it from the inside out. I want to do it from this girl's perspective. I want to like get into it. And they let me do such weird things. I built an online space with like, a 360-degree mirror room based on this beautiful artist's work. And they just let me do a lot. They let me do a lot.
As a mother, it was so disturbing because the panic.
Yeah.
If
of that lack
happens,
of control, right?
No, it was upsetting.
It is. It's upsetting.
It was really good, but it was very upsetting.
It is. It's not a happy little, and it's interesting. It's a little bit like a Rorschach test, I think, for people. Like, girls who are recovered reach out and say, I've never had anybody document my experience. I'm so glad I'm not there anymore. I'm so glad. It makes me so happy to not be in that darkness anymore. Girls who I think are, like, prone to it, like, or triggered by it, can like watch it and be like, I love this movie. Oh my God, I wish I was that thin. And I'm like, there's death. Like, the result is death. Like, is anyone like paying attention? So it's been a challenge,
And then the twist of it being the son.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real thing too. They just don't call it. I think there's 2 things. Anorexia is dismissed as a woman's problem, and a white woman's problem in particular. And ideally, I would have loved to have had a mixed race daughter for that role and had like a divorced family, and there were certain things I couldn't do within the ramifications of our work. But I think that when boys experience it, it's not caught, and when boys experience it, it's called like something else. Like, and it's so stupid. Isn't that weird to genderize a disease?
Don't we do that with everything?
With everything. Yeah. It's really crazy. So,
like, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Right, you can't unsee it. Yeah.
So have you done all 4 with them, or do you have more to do with that company?
I haven't. That executive has moved on. It's very exciting. She just has moved on to Lifetime. She's their executive. She's the vice president of series over there. So I haven't. I mean, I met with an executive there yesterday, but I don't have anything lined up with them. Part of my goal for the past year since I finished Lost Boy, which was the project with Virginia, has been to get off of that like low budget hamster wheel a little bit, and so going back to my roots and writing, and going back out into the world as a writer director in a new like space, in like a bigger space, and tapping back into my old studio contacts and saying, hey, I'm still writing, and also now here I've directed all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it would be great to work together again and, like, reconnecting that way.
That's great.
Yeah, so far so good. Actually, I have a new project that's based on a terrible car crash that my husband and I were in right after I wrapped The Inspiration. That's like an otherworldly romance. It's really exciting. And I have a project that I'm pitching with a guy who was a EP on Law and Order for like 10 years, and we're taking that project out. Right now, we just pitched last week to Freeform, and I'm up for a studio directing job, which I can't say yet, but I heard they were going to make the offer this week, so that would be very exciting. But yeah, it's like there's like a difference between my phone's downstairs, but there's like a difference between like the call where they say they're going to offer it to you, and here's the offer. Like there's like a very big difference, and it's interesting. Like the more time I've spent in the industry, I think the more finicky deals have gotten, and the further down the path you can be when it all gets like where the rug gets pulled up. So now I joke that I'm like, no, until I'm like with the check in the bank and I'm actually wrapped on the movie, I almost don't believe that it's happening. Like, I'll believe it when we deliver it, like, yeah, it's very strange. I've had it a couple of times like that, not good treatment.
Why do people make that phone call? Oh, they're gonna offer it to you. That seems very cruel unless it's actual.
I think it has to do sometimes with like the amount of money the producers are going to get. And that if it's not worth it to them, then they don't do it, I think. I've had that a couple of times. I've had some bad run-ins.
God.
But like I've also like in between all of this, like I'm like scrapping around. So like I wrote a movie for Disney Channel with a friend of mine, and like I did a few commercials, and I did a pilot presentation for a Nickelodeon star, and like I'm just like I very much like to be working. Like I very much want to be like, what's next? Let's do something.
And you are working.
Yeah.
Which is great. You're one of the 6%?
It's a funny thing to think. Maria and I were talking about this yesterday because somebody said, "Oh my God, congratulations, Maria Burton! Yeah, you're doing it all." And she was like, "Ah," and she and I like the glamorous life of like, being stuck in this kind of ghetto budgets where you're not making enough to pay the nanny. It's not sustainable. And I don't mean to say ghetto. It's like, there's a world for low budget movies, but like if I want to actually do good work, then I'm committing, I'm not just turning them around really fast and saying, oh, I know what kind of movie this is. This is just going to go straight to whatever. I'll just slap it together and call it in from the couch, which I think some executives would say, just call it in. Just
churn out 20 schlocky things a year.
Do 5 a year. And I'm like, I can't do 5 a year. Like, I can't do anything good if I'm doing 5 a year. So I like...
Wait, you want to do quality? What's the matter with you?
I know. What is the matter with me? Good
so,
Lord.
Does it feel like it's a jump to get into big budget, do one giant movie a year, make a bunch of money?
Huge jump. I mean, I do feel, because we're talking about the parody stuff, I do feel like for guys, it's like, oh, you did that little thing? Oh, that's great. Come do this big thing. For women, I feel like it's like, oh, you did that little thing. That's great. You can do little things.
Good job.
Like, yeah, good job. Keep doing little things. That's so good. Well, if you want to do big things, you just haven't done those big things. I'm just not sure you can. We're very much judged on like exactly what we've done. I think men more often are judged on like their potential. I think we even marry that way. I see something in you. You could be. Don't tell my husband I said that. I love him very much. He's reaching his potential all the time.
Oh my God, that is the best line I've ever heard. You are so right. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, I think it's like so culturally embedded and systemic.
Do you think people don't even know they're doing it?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, some people I think might know they're doing it, but mostly I think it's this unconscious bias. And again, I spoke to before 3 years ago when there weren't words for it. Now I can say unconscious bias, and it explains it all. It's like people don't really know they're doing it. I just had a meeting for this job I hope I'm going to get, and the women said, it was 2 women executives, super cool, really smart, and they said, we've never hired a woman before. And they were like, not for lack of trying. And I kind of wanted to just like be like, yeah, and at the same time I was like, you know what? I just totally let them off the hook. I was like, it's hard. I've always wanted to work with a female DP and I haven't yet. So like, you know, and there was a female AD at our meeting last night who was like saying, look, you guys are all about directors equality, but half of you won't hire me. And I was like, bah! Like, it's, you know, God, you know, like,
kind of true.
Yeah, and like, I've never worked with a female AD. I've never even interviewed a female AD.
But there are some out there.
There are some out there. I just, like, my producers introduced me, you know, like the way that these projects have worked. The producers put in front of me who they think are the good people. And sometimes I do feel like, because I'm a woman, I should have a very big, dude-ish AD who is the linebacker for me.
Yeah.
I'll play quarterback and he can be the linebacker. Is that the right metaphor? I don't watch a lot of sports.
I'm the wrong person to ask.
I think it sounds good though.
Like, what are the positions in a musical theater production?
I know. I'm like,
but in terms,
so
I can understand.
He's
the stage manager,
totally.
quite literally.
Yeah.
Well, do you feel that as the director, you can have that kind of influence to say, hey, I want to interview 5 people and 3 of them must be women?
Yes, absolutely.
Does it occur to you to do that?
It hasn't, but it should and it will. I think, here's the hard thing. I think being a director, in my experience, is all about me. I want. Can we, how about, what if I have, can I not?
Well, that is your job.
Extra? Yeah, but you're just about, like, it's so much take, right? So in all of those battles, you have to then also say, I want a female AD. Or I want a female whatever. I mean, I've only ever worked with female producers.
Yeah. There's a lot of those.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know what that says either. Like, we call Video Village Vagina Village because there's so many women at Monitor, you know? Like, so, like, it's not, you know, in my own feelings, I'm like, but it's not that I'm sexist. I'm like, but look at what you have never done. You've never hired a female DP. That's a problem. But so what I'm presented with, it's unconscious. And you're trying to protect yourself, and you're trying to say, well, to mitigate the risk, I'm the young female, so I want to make sure that, like, everyone trusts that I can figure it out, you know?
Yeah, it's funny that, and even this diversity panel I went to on Monday, the pervasive thought was, and it was just accepted, that hiring a woman is so risky. You have to put all this scaffolding around her and all this support.
That's right.
And somehow guarantee it's going to work because it is so risky.
That's right. So I felt that myself, and I've put that scaffolding around me. I have a male DP and a male AD, and, you know, that's about it. I mean, like, what else do I have?
But does anyone have that attitude when it's a young white guy?
Oh, God, no. But it's funny because on sets, the crew, I don't know if I've been lucky. I've had really, really good crew. Really good crew. Like, I feel like when we're on set, I'm like, this is my family. These are my people, like my team, you know? But I have heard these stories about, like, a crew who will, like, and I've heard my own crew, like, talking crap about other directors who show up and don't know what they're doing. And I find it, you know, partly I'm like, look, you guys get to be on set all day, every day, all the time. I'm busy for, like, a year. I'm trying to get the project going. For another year, I'm writing it. For another year, I'm casting it and financing it. And then I show up here. So, yeah, you guys have been on set for 3 years, and I haven't. Yeah. So, like, in a way, not fair. Like, if I don't know, like, what 10-2 means or whatever, you know. So, but I do. But it's interesting, like, that judgment a crew can make and how a crew can turn on a director and how much a DP has to do with that and how having that ally is important. It's very...
You gotta have all those relationships be solid before you start.
Yeah, but I wonder, even if, like, a dumb young white guy showed up and was on set, like, at least he's like them. If there's more...
Not to say that they're all dumb white guys.
Silence. No, for sure, no, for sure. In fact, I think a lot of the white guys bring with them, like, a socialized confidence and assuredness that you have to have on set.
Yeah.
You have to have it. You have to be like, no, I completely know how this goes. I don't know if they always do, but... And I think it's very easy to be a lazy director, too. I think when you have really good people around you, it's very easy to say, what do you think? Yeah, that's a great idea. Go ahead and do that. What do you think? And, like, it's very easy to hide in all the bells and whistles of your team and not actually do interesting shots or meaningful work or have any sort of, you know, arcs to what's happening and just let it all ride.
Just show up and say action.
Just show up. It's crazy. But to be a deliberate director who understands, like, how things are going to cut together or, like, what coverage you need or how to cover it without it just being, like, every size under the moon which is more what they want in TV, so that you have a lot of options and they can pull it together. But I think it's an easy place to hide. I shadowed on the show Castle, and one of their directors told me that actually, and I was like, oh my God, you're so right. So, and he's a white guy, and he's a really good director.
Do you find that you prepare a lot? Mm-hmm. Like, do you feel like you've been more prepared than other people because you're the woman there?
I don't really know what other people do, because I think that's the other interesting thing. Like, I'm not really on a lot of other people's sets.
Right.
I know, of course, that there's people who, Chris Nolan shoots very improvisationally, and like even on like his big stuff, he's like, let's just point it in that direction, and we'll point it in that, and like, it's all very like still this kind of indie thing that he brings to it, which is beautiful. I don't do that. I'm very I very much like to spend a lot of time with my DP shot listing, and proving to him that a shot works on my iPhone with an intern, so that I can like make sure he understands what I want to do. And I love playing with the camera. So while I started writing comedy, the thing that I really enjoyed when I was doing the movies for Lifetime, these kind of psychological thrillers, was like, oh, the camera gets to be so fun. It's choreography, and I come from a background of dance, and so I really enjoy like letting the camera manipulate the viewer and building that effect. Yeah. I definitely prepare like a crazy person. And then the morning of a shoot, I always come like an hour and a half early. And that's partly because I have children. And so I like try to up and out before anyone sees me. I'm like a ninja in the morning. Yeah. And then I just sit in my car, and I usually drink my coffee and go over the scenes for the day and make sure that I have like a really solid idea of at least what the morning is. Sometimes I'll take lunch to get through the afternoon, but like a really, really solid idea. And then sometimes you get to set and like it all blows up, and like none of that is going to happen. And so then what I like about it is I've understood the intention so clearly from my prep that then it doesn't matter if I have to throw all that out and like reframe. You can pivot so quickly because you're on your feet. Yeah. And as long as you're on your feet, I think you're fine. And sometimes it's an actress who's like, we've been shooting everything in this direction, or, well, why would I do that? Or sometimes it's a DP who's like, oh my God, the light is really a lot better over here. Or sometimes it's a producer who's like, I have to add 3 more scenes to the day today. Or sometimes it's, like you're getting ready to go to lunch and somebody says our craft services or our catering is, they just got their license pulled, so we have another 2 hours. What do you want to shoot? You're like, well, okay, let's figure it out. Let's do it. So I feel it's interesting because I'm a total stress case in prep. I get because I'm like, this is the time where I can get everything. This is the time where if I'm going to win any battles, it's now. Once I'm on set, it is what it is, and you've got to go. You don't have time to win any battles or lose any. You got to make it work. So I'm actually a lot more relaxed on set because I'm like, it is what it is. We got to go.
Interesting.
On prep, I'm like, why aren't we getting that day? Why don't I have an underwater day? Why can't I get this? Why can't we shoot at the house that's better looking? Because it's harder to shoot. Who cares? Like, I'm very in the mix.
But that's your time to fight.
That's my time to fight. Right. And then on set, I don't fight.
Okay, so you have a family.
I have a family.
How do you manage your family while you're working?
My husband is a cinematographer. So he and I, on the first 2 movies. On the first movie, I was pregnant with Luna, my oldest. On the second movie, she was 2 years old, I want to say. So it was a 15-day shoot, and Brett was my DP. My husband was my DP. My parents took her for 7 days, and his mom took her for 8 days. So she was with grandparents, and that was pretty good. And we did a lot of phone calls and Skyping and all that stuff. But she was little, and it was easier. And then on the third movie, I found out I was pregnant. I found out I was pregnant on the second movie and didn't tell anybody because I was so freaked out and I thought I was going to get fired. And that was tough.
You thought you were going to get fired for being pregnant?
I thought I was in a vulnerable position and did not want to make myself any more vulnerable. That's how I really did. I really felt that way. It was also my first job directing for hire. And I had recently, when I was pregnant with Luna, I had reached out to somebody, a friend, an old friend, and said, hey, I'm pregnant. I really need a job. Do you think I could associate produce this show with you? And she basically came back and said, because you're pregnant, we don't think it's a good idea because it's a hard on-set position, which is illegal, by the way. And also is a friend of mine. And so, that experience, I think, left me feeling like this was my first job for hire. It was producers I didn't know, I had never worked with, and it was kind of match made with, and I just didn't feel safe sharing that information.
Yeah, pregnancy discrimination is real.
Right, and it was first trimester on top of which.
So you felt horrible.
Right, and I felt horrible, and I was like sneaking almonds in my mouth. Like, that was the day the catering store.
I just eat a lot.
The catering had gotten their license pulled one day, and I was so hungry. And I remember, when you're pregnant, if you're not fed, your brain is just like granola bar, granola bar, granola bar. It's like this crazy thing. And so I literally turned to my ID and I go, because he kept saying 10 more minutes. I was like, I don't know what you want me to shoot. And then I go, I can't think until I get some peanuts in my face. Like, I can't. And he didn't know I was pregnant, And also it was like climbing cliffs. I just don't want anybody telling me no. That's really like the biggest thing. I was like, I don't want anyone to tell me no.
Yeah.
For better, for worse. Okay, so my husband shot that second movie, and then because I was pregnant, we had another baby. Then I was like, we can't do the same movie. So I did my third movie when the baby was really little. I think she was 3 months old when we started prep, and he was home with her. But I thought it was a really good opportunity, and I didn't want to turn it down. And yeah, so he, because he was with her, it was a lot easier than if I'd had to have a sitter or something like that. And then, so we don't shoot together anymore, which is sad, because that's how we started, was shooting together. And we switch off. So when he's shooting, I'm not, and vice versa. And then the last movie, it was the same thing. He just took off that time and didn't work while I was shooting.
So the timing works out so far?
Yeah, so far. I mean, it's not easy, I will say. And I did have just recently somebody was like, in a meeting, an executive was like, well, who's going to watch your kids? Which also I don't think is legal.
No.
But I think people are partly curious.
Yeah.
And partly worried, like, about you, about your children. I mean, I think it's more, I hate to excuse it, right? Because it's a roadblock, right? It's a roadblock for me. But I think it is a human concern.
Yeah.
I don't think it's malicious. I think it's a human worry or whatever. So I think it does come from a good place, believe it or not. So anyway, but I explained, like, we have our parents are in town and we have lots of help and my husband will be here. So but at the same time, I found out this potential job is like far, far, far away in another country, like so far away. And I said, I was like, no, that's awesome. Like, let's go shoot it. And then like that night, I like curled up with my 3-year-old in bed and I was like, yeah.
Like, wait a minute, how long?
But the truth is, like, our kids are a little bit with us on this crazy wild adventure. My husband was shooting in Atlanta for 4 months this summer, so the three of us packed up and went to, he was in Macon, of all places, not even Atlanta. We packed up and went to Macon for 5 weeks in the summer. And, we had it was like, okay, guys, we're on the life raft. There's no one else here. It's just the three of us.
Yeah.
Let's not eat each other. Let's just have a good time.
We're migrant film workers.
Yes, we were like migrant film workers.
Yeah.
And in some ways, because I'm not working, I don't shoot all the time. So there's some times when I have lots of time with them, and sometimes when I don't, and sometimes when I do. And it is definitely, I think, going to be harder as they get older, actually. Like, when they're little, I think they kind of need you less, Like, when, And
you can just take them.
Right.
When they're in 3rd grade, maybe not so much.
That's the thing, right? When they're in 2nd grade next year, like, I'm not really, somebody's like, oh, just hire a teacher and bring them with you, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not really sure it's going to be great for them to be, even in Georgia, it was very isolating. You're like out there, have none of your buddies.
Yeah.
It's just you and the bourbon. It was a little hard. And I was writing there, thank God. I had nannies in the morning and I was writing the script, the car accident script that whole time. And I'm actually hoping that's like the next big, like that's my big baby that's coming. The other things are great jobs and great opportunities or whatever. But this is like the thing that I've been writing to like pull out of the, pull out of this level up until the next level.
To get you to the next thing.
Yeah.
And then how have you and your husband negotiated the house part of it? Do you have a fairly equitable division of labor?
So what's hard is the inconsistency. So when Brett is gone on a shoot, like in another state or another country, it is like all me. Right, it's all me. And we have lots of help. I have like a cleaner and a gardener and like all this stuff that like a lot of people aren't lucky enough to be able to pay for. And I try to export as much as I can so that the time I do have is spent with my kids and not cleaning or whatever.
Right.
They don't eat very healthy food when he's gone. I'll say that. I'm not the best at doing that consistently. But so then when he comes back, the hard thing is like, it doesn't even adjust necessarily back to 50-50 very quickly. It's like this whole new adjustment. I have to be like, remember, your job is dinner. Remember, your job is the laundry. Remember, your job is this thing. And so that I've found to be troubling is like the re-entry is really hard with that readjustment. And I do think, and I don't mean to throw my husband under the bus on this, but like, I am definitely the primary caregiver. The girls' schooling and friends and social lives and extracurriculars is all on me. And that's a full-time job in and of itself. And I am kind of trying to be like as much of a 70s mother as I can, where I'm like, we had like a lot of extracurriculars earlier this year. And I was like, this is miserable.
Yeah.
This is really for us. I have no judgment of other people and if they need it and if they make it work and if their kids love it. But for us, like, my kids would much rather come home from school and like plop on the trampoline for an hour and a half and go doodle in their bedrooms or like, circle my legs while I'm trying to be on a phone call, whatever that is. But it just, so I'm kind of experimenting, I think, this next year with like a less is more thing in terms of what we extend ourselves towards.
Yeah.
And we'll see if, my kid does not become Tiger Woods, then I will be the one who's sorry.
It's going to be your fault.
It is my fault. Why didn't you ever take me to ballet? Because ballet is stupid. No, I love ballet.
Ballet is great.
Yeah, ballet is great.
Don't get me wrong. Do you feel like a success?
I think it depends what room I'm in. And that's not great. No, I mean, I feel, I will say like on a whole, I feel like we have like rigged the system, my husband and I. I'm like, how did we figure this out? Like, we have these two beautiful daughters and we live in this big, beautiful house in LA, which is like nonsense. Like, nobody gets a house in LA. We have a yard. Like, that's crazy. Like, how did we do that? So I do feel like I've gamed the system in this really interesting way. So that, yes, I do feel like a success. And also the fact that we're both leading like creative lives. Like, we're both creative for money. I feel like that's amazing. Incredible. Yeah. And I always, if I go back to speak at like UCSB or something, I always try to like, the kids these days, the students think that like success and legitimacy comes from being one of 5 auteur men who are like the most lauded filmmakers in Hollywood. But I have a friend who wrote like a Free Willy movie. And she puts food on her table for her children, and she supports them with her, like, with healthcare because of that. And so, like, providing for your family is, there's no shame in that. That is, like, amazing that she did that. That, yeah. Like, so I have a lot of respect for the middle and lower class working people of this system, and I'm one of them. That's the truth, right? Like, I'm not, like, I mean, I've dabbled up into the studio stuff, but on the whole, the money that I've made is at this, like, kind of lower level echelon, but
you're still making movies,
and I'm still making movies. Like, I'm doing what I said I wanted to do. So yeah.
It's funny when I was in college and I was in acting school, and everyone's position at 18 was, oh, I would never do commercials. Like, right. That would just, be the funny. Worst.
Right.
And then, they get out and realize, oh my God, if I could support myself,
I wish I could get a commercial.
Right.
Right. I would love to shoot commercials. By the way, I think that's even harder for women than features and then TV. I think it's like episodic is the easiest. Episodic is the easiest, and then features, and then commercials. And then being president. It's like hard in that order.
Being president might be the hardest.
It's the hardest.
Are you a badass?
Sure, I'll take that. I like badass. Why not? Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. It's it's interesting. I had a young intern who was here, and I would like to say I'm a badass. I don't know if that's true, but this intern was here, and she was like, "Oh my God, like I never wanted to have kids because I never thought it could look like the way you make it look." And she's like, "I've never seen women have kids like this. Like, you're still." And I think maybe the word she was looking for is like relevant. But do you know what I mean? Like, I think in like much of the world,
you're not lost.
Yes, selfless. Kids. Like, mother means selfless. Like, literally without self, which means on drugs. Because I don't know how you lose yourself entirely to everybody around you without heavily medicating. But But yeah, I mean, like, I think it's, I would say I've heard that from people. It's hard to imagine yourself. Like, I know all my nonsense and I know where all the bodies are buried. So, like, I don't feel like I'm some sort of, like, action star or something like that, you know, necessarily on good days.
Just for fun, what's the craziest thing that ever happened on a set?
The craziest thing. Oh my God, you know, it kind of goes back to, like, my student film days. Can I count that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I shot this little short film called Miss Gentlebell, and it was a horror film that was written by this guy Charles Beaumont, who used to write for Roger Corman. So you can imagine it's very Twilight Zone. And it's like a scene. It's like it's about a woman who raises her son as a girl because she's so damaged by men she can't believe that she's had a son. It's like so crazy. And I'm like in my Gap, like khakis. I'm like, let's do it, guys. Like,
that was so before your time.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It should have a resurgence. But so anyway, so we have the scene where she punishes him for doing something bad, and she's going to kill his bird. He's got this bird. And so we get these pigeons from the bio department at school. These like, that they're like, you know, that you would cut up for school or whatever, like pigeon cadavers. I don't know what you call it. Because we have a shot where she like hacks the pigeon. Okay. So I send an intern to go pick up the pigeons from the bio department, and it's like Saturday morning at like 6 a.m. and we're like getting the pigeons, and maybe it couldn't have been 6 a.m. Anyway, so he hands me the pigeons, and they're like wet. They're like in a bottle, like they're in a there's 6 of them, first of all, and there's 6 dead pigeons. And at the time I'm a vegetarian, and they're in like formaldehyde, and I'm like, did you not want to like mention that they were soaking wet like yesterday at noon when you picked them up? And also, why are they warm? And he's like, oh, I left them in my car. Oh. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm like, okay, so how are we going to deal with this? So I'm like, okay. And then you don't have any support. You're just like the responsibility gene. Like, it's all on you. So I say, okay, I need a blow dryer and I need an extension cord. And I get the pigeons out and I get the hero pigeon and I'm drying it off with this blow dryer. And these 3 little kids skateboard by and they're just staring at me like I have like the pigeon. I'm holding up a dead pigeon with this blow dryer and they're looking at me and I'm like, oh, it's not real. It's just a prop. It's like a fake. It's not a dead pigeon. It's a fake pigeon. And I'm like, blow drying this fake pigeon. So I think that might be the goosiest. But it's like, that's not like atypical, I would say.
Right.
That kind of weird is not atypical of what happens on a movie shoot.
What do you think is the next step for women in this business? Like you, I grew up thinking it was over and then got into the business world and was just shocked by, oh my God, we've gotten nowhere. Yeah. And no one realizes that we've gotten nowhere.
Yeah.
What do you think our next steps are?
Our next steps. So, oh my God. The incremental steps that I see are just more women working and more people, like, because, you know, it's incredible how hard it is. Like, the director recommends me for the job, and then the 2 people he recommends me to have to say, yes, we recommend her for the job. And then the person who is their boss has to say, yes, she can do the job. And the person who sends the check has to say yes. So it's not just like, you can have like a champion. You have to have like a row of champions who are like, we're willing to take a risk because I'm so risky, right? Mm-hmm. We're willing to take that risk. So more of that. I just think like it needs to start like that tipping point, that Malcolm Gladwell tipping point where so many people are doing it that all of a sudden everybody's doing it. Everybody's saying, let's bring in 3 this time. Let's bring in 6 this time. Let's have it be 53% women now. Let's try having, what if we did 70%? Like I know like on The Killing, they only hired women directors. Mm-hmm. I know Jill Soloway is like blowing it up for women right now. Like she's doing so much good work hiring women. So I think we need a lot of that, a lot more of that. And I think that's happening. But I also believe that we have to start lauding filmmakers who don't only imitate a male gaze. So I see like, you know, like, and by the way, I'm a very big fan of Catherine Bigelow and Sofia Coppola's, but I think that the work that they've done speaks to the male gaze in 2 very different and specific ways. So like Lost in Translation opens on a shot of of Scarlett Johansson's butt in see-through pink panties. So that wouldn't be my choice as a woman of the first thing I would see of my lead character, who is a girl who's lost, right? Like, it's her ass. And I mean, it's just like, to me, that's not right. But it does a certain thing and it affects a certain, you know, it's titillating and it's exciting and whatever.
And that's comfortable. We recognize that.
And it's comfortable and recognized, right? And the men are like, yes, just like me. Good, A+. I'll vote for that one, right? Yeah. And the same thing with Catherine Bigelow, who, like, you know, like James Cameron did Avatar, which is like all about like Mother Earth and like female dominance. The same year that Catherine did this like lone wolf Army Ranger bomb diffuser. Well, one woman in the movie, and I don't think she speaks. She's like a ghost of his former life, you know, like story, and she won. Yeah. And I find that really fascinating. Jane Campion, who has a very female voice and a very female perspective, has never been acknowledged. So that's what I think is interesting. Like when we can acknowledge that, like, it's not just this very strict hero's journey that goes like a lone man goes into the cave and rediscovers himself and is reborn out of the big vagina and then fights with a big phallus and wins. Like when we can rediscover a narrative that doesn't just have that like one specific male masculine journey, then I think that would be real change. I don't know if that's going to happen ever. And I did see one model that was like, maybe the female journey is like a circular, like a spiral going inward journey. But you know, it's like a return to paganism or something. It's like, I mean, it's so moving away from like the Judeo-Christian narrative of like, that's the Jesus story. He goes into a cave, he comes out, he's reborn, and he saves everybody. I mean, it's the same, you know, like it is so steeped in our culture.
That is the story structure.
It is story, right? So, I mean, I have this weird photo. It's like, it's at a graveyard somewhere, and it's a headstone. It says story. So, like, story is dead. It's a good shot. I don't know, I just have it up in my office. But maybe we need to have a rebirth of story. Yeah. You know? Maybe that's it.
Is there anything that you haven't accomplished that you still want to accomplish?
Oh, God, yeah. I want to do a big freaking Hollywood movie. I want to do aliens. Like, I do. I want to do big, fun, like I wish I had done Ghostbusters. Like, I want to go shoot, and like, you know, Handmaid's Tale is coming out. I'm like, I want to go shoot that. Like there's so many beautiful stories out there. And I think, interestingly, you know, a lot of people have to write to get to direct. And I think even more women, you have to write to get to direct. But, I think that there's so many amazing writers out there that I would love to bring like books to screen. I'm like, but I want to do it big. I want to play with big toys. I want to like, you know, work with amazing actors. I want, like male and female. I want to have time for more than, you know, one take sometimes. Yeah. Which happens, you know. I want to have like space to play and to make beautiful, beautiful work. So that's it. I want like, and it's interesting. Like as a director, I'm like, I want more. I want more. I'll take as much as I can get.
What advice would you give to either your younger self just starting out on this journey or young women today just starting out?
Oh my gosh. To young women, to my younger self, very specifically, I would say always be ready for that next opportunity. So like if you're going out with a short film, have a feature script ready. If you're going out with a feature script, have another 3 pitches ready. If you're going out with a feature film, have another feature ready. Like, always be very, like, especially like on the festival circuit, or if you're going into a room, always be ready with that next thing. I think because when I started off, I was a director and not a writer. I went on the festival circuit and had a lot of success, but I didn't have projects ready that I was like ready to do that next thing. And I think it would have made things, it would have put me on a different path, I think. And then to anyone who's coming out to do it, I would say you have to do it. I would say you really have to make sure you're doing it, because I spent like 7 years while I was attached to a project where I stopped. Like I had done shorts and then I was attached to this feature to direct it, and I waited on somebody else to make it happen, and it was to no fault of her own. It was a very difficult project to get up because it was a female character and very female driven project. But I just stopped making things happen, where like now I feel like I'm a little bit more like I went this fall and I was like, let's shoot this thing. I want to shoot this thing called Meet a Muslim, because Trump is an idiot and I want to respond to his stupidity, and I'm frustrated that people could really think that all Muslims are evil, and I think that's insane because they make up 1/3 of the planet. So like, let's talk about that. Yeah. So we went and shot this little short, and now William Morris is helping me distribute it because they loved it and they really responded to it, and we're launching it on June 7th, and it's going to be this whole thing. So like, because I'm a filmmaker, and film is a great tool, and so keep communicating and keep using it and keep expressing yourself. And especially now with all that technology,
it's easier than ever.
I kind of hate that people say this, because yes, it is easier than ever, but like, figure out what you have to say, figure out what you want to talk about too. Like,
it's not enough just to turn on your iPhone and point it at somebody.
Yeah. Try to cut through that noise.
Yeah.
Try to make a point.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you could come.
You've been listening to The Other 50%. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Tara Miele for sharing her story. And special thanks to Jonathan Lucas for editing, Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. And on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for added features and bios of our guests. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Oh my God, that was so good.
Oh, good.